Welcome back as we delve into, as we mentioned earlier, a vitally important conversation. Every year, thousands of children in South Africa are born with Clubfoot, a condition that, if left untreated, can lead to lifelong disability. We see that here in South Africa, but with the right care, these children can walk, can run and live full and meaningful lives. And today we are joined by Karen Mara Moss, founder and CEO of Steps Clubfoot Care. Great to connect with her again. And Professor Andrea Horn, consultant pediatric orthopedic surgeon at the incredible Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital, who I think we all owe a massive debt of gratitude to, and of course the University of Cape Town as well, to discuss the condition, its treatment and the urgent need to improve access to care. I try to cover as much of the journey as I could in that intro because it feels like there is a lot going on. Karen, maybe I can start with you because we have connected with you and we know that the incredible work that your organization does. How do you deal with the frustration of knowing that there is a solution to this massive problem and it's more the resources or the barriers standing in our way, but we can do it? Just fill us in on your current state of affairs.
Well, I think since Steps is turning 20 this year,
wow.
So it's been a long journey and certainly things are much better than they were all those years ago. And I think it's due to a lot of incredible partnerships with doctors like Professor Horn and many others, because since the beginning of Steps, we've always partnered with the South African Pediatric Orthopedic Society, because I'm a mother. I'm not a doctor. I just have my only experience is having a child with Clubfoot, so I can speak from that. But obviously learning through the years where Steps is today and where Clubfoot treatment is today is streets ahead of where it was. Brilliant. However, I think some of the challenges are everything that's affecting healthcare at the moment, just restricted resources, doctors not getting put into posts, certain treatments are just not available, certain resources are not available, and it's really almost like a lottery. It depends where you're born and how far you're away from that clinic is going to determine the access for that child, as well as the information that's available to them.
And you've got this crazy dynamic. Is there a parent driving this, fearlessly pushing this narrative, and a doctor willing to champion the cause as well? So I would imagine frustration on both sides, but also the beauty of some amazing success stories woven into that. Can you talk to me about the Ponseti method? I think obviously considered the gold standard in this space, but explain to us what we're talking about.
So the Ponseti method describes a very specific sequence of serial casting. So with casting, I mean application of a plaster cast with gentle manipulation and slowly and gradually correcting the child's foot from the abnormal clubfoot position to the normal position. And the Ponseti method usually does include a small operation as well, but we do that in the clinic under local anesthetic. So it's a very non-invasive procedure. And what makes it so revolutionary is that the man that described it, Professor Ignacio Ponseti, did an in-depth study of the anatomy of the pediatric foot, of the clubfoot, which is abnormal. It's not a normal foot. It's not a normal foot that's just in a funny position. There's a lot more than that going on. And through his studies, he realized that what technique needs to be used. It's a bit complicated to explain it now, but it's changed the world, because even since Hippocratic times, people have been using gentle manipulation, or sometimes not so gentle manipulation, to correct the feet, but they were doing it wrong. They were moving it at the wrong joint. I think that's basically it. And with Ponseti describing it, it's an easy thing to learn. Anybody with the right training can do it. You don't have to be an orthopedic surgeon.
So we can propagate this everywhere.
Absolutely, and all you need is plaster of Paris, which is ubiquitously available even in our most rural hospitals, and a sharp blade.
So what then needs to fall into place? And I know we are always fighting against the chasm on the social development front, and we understand this, but surely with all of these pieces on the board, we can do more. What does that look like? How do we need to bring about systemic change? Is it a policy thing? What needs to shift?
I think the policy is probably not the thing. I mean, and she can speak more to that, because the doctors ultimately decide on the courses of treatment. But resources like describing, manipulating and doing that small procedure, but then the child has to sleep in one of these until the age of 4. And some hospitals have not had these in stock for years. It's all procurement processes, budgets, other things. And as I said earlier, it depends on where you're born. There's some places that have them and some that don't. So I think if what is interesting for me is the economic benefits of treating Clubfoot, because if you think of the grants and the disability, all the costs of maintaining a person who's got disability well into, for their whole lives, versus a short early intervention,
a controlled window,
it's a massive saving. We actually have 2 master's students in health economics doing 2 studies on Clubfoot, which I'm really excited will be out sometime this year, and perhaps something like that could illustrate to the powers that be to invest more in the resources.
Because it's paying a dividend.
Yes, and if government got involved in the advocacy campaigns, helping us to distribute information leaflets, we support a lot of training. So it's very much a public-private initiative right now. My dream would be that I no longer have to do everything that I'm doing, and I'm supporting parents who are going through the emotional side of Clubfoot, having a baby with Clubfoot, which was my initial,
I was going to say, because lest we forget, there is the whole emotional side to the narrative as well. Doctor, maybe we can round off this conversation with you right now. What do you need, if you could have anyone sitting in front of you right now to say, please change this, add this, how would you approach that? Who would you need to speak to?
Sure.
From president down?
I'm not sure that's going to be useful. Well, maybe president. So I actually don't think, like you said, that that the policy is necessarily the problem at a government level. I think it's more on the ground, and it's the same problem we see everywhere else in healthcare, is poor management of resources, not necessarily lack of resources, and poor education for both the staff that manages these children and then the population themselves.
So are most effective.
I think I honestly don't know how to answer that question, because there's no simple solution. If I can go to somebody and say, oh, give me lots of money, that won't last.
And that still needs to be managed as well through that process, for sure.
It needs to be a whole mindset change. And just on the boots, I don't know if we have time, but those are very nice, and they are imported, and they are very expensive. But all over Africa, and in South Africa, they used to make their own little boots. Not as fancy as these, but they work.
Accessible, yeah.
A little bit of leather, it can be done, but the workshops throughout the country has become almost de-skilled in actually making these little boots themselves. And that's another thing that I think can be...
what I'm loving about this, there are practical options. It's not just about shifting mindset at this stage. That's happened. We understand that there are solutions. It just requires action now at a critical level, at the base level where it matters most. We're going to continue this discussion in just a moment. If you have a personal experience walking this path, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know on our social media platforms. Drop us a comment. We'll continue in a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we continue our medical discussion this morning. Well, I'm going to call it a human discussion because this affects so many South Africans. We are back with Karen Mara Moss from STEPS Clubfoot Care and Professor Anria Horn to talk about the long-term impact of Clubfoot treatment and what's being done to ensure no child is left behind, because if we are all in this together, no child will get left behind because we have the answers. I have been quite negative, and I've thrown a lot of very deep, slightly political questions at you, so I thought let's look at that human angle right now. Set against the great challenges, there must be some wonderful stories of hope. Can you talk us through some of the stories that have kind of propped you up in your journey?
Yeah, I think that's what keeps us going, really. Sometimes it's been tough, running STEPS and challenges that have come along at different times, but you just have to meet one mother and one child, and it kind of puts it all in perspective again. I'm just thinking of a little boy that came through an organisation that was working in an informal settlement outside Pretoria. He was already 3 years old with untreated Clubfoot, and his parents were unemployed. There was really no way for him to access anything, and they found out about us, and the social worker that was volunteering there contacted us. We managed to... there's at Baragwanath, Chris Hardy Baragwanath Hospital, the amazing doctors there, they just want every child to get treated, so they didn't, worry about referrals or anything like that. Because of the special case, they got all the paperwork ready, and we raised, supported their transport to get there, and he was a severe case. His feet were like this and stiff, and he was literally could not walk. Yeah, he was crawling because he couldn't put weight on his feet, and he was 3. And I think when you see those small children with untreated clubfoot, they know already at that age, they've already suffered, you know, they feel shame, they know they're different. But to cut a long story short, within, I think it was about 2.5 months, because he needed longer treatment, 2 to 3 months, his feet were straight. And he had, as Professor Horn was talking about, a procedure. I think he had a little bit more done because his feet were a little bit more, more extreme, stiffer. Yeah. And his first thing he wanted was a pair of sneakers, because he'd never worn shoes. So I got this video of him hopping along this thing. I must say that was like really,
cup full.
Happy tears from my eyes.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. Well, I'm struggling a little bit. I've got 2 young kids, so I can imagine that when your children come into the world, if there is any sort of defect, it's a judgment on you, it's a judgment on them, it's a judgment on your genes, on your... So many stigmas, Prof, so many things I would imagine standing in your way. What are the biggest misconceptions and how do you go about re-educating families? Because we know in the disability space, especially, massive, massive wall to climb.
Yes, so you've actually already mentioned it. So I think the misconception that I most frequently encounter, and having said that, not that frequently, but when I do, is the guilt. So, like you said, parents always query themselves as to what did they do wrong. You know, was it that one time they think they took some Panado because they had a headache, you know, or something like that. So there's often a lot of guilt, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to just every time you have an interaction with these parents, because we see them every week, so you become very attached almost to your Clubfoot patients, because it's a very regular thing, and just reiterate every time it's not your fault, you did nothing wrong. Give them information, show them this is how common it is. Clubfoot occurs in 1 in 1,000 babies. So if you think how many babies get born across the Cape Peninsula per day, you know, it's not your fault, it just happens. And then the other misconception, which is more common in the, definitely in the more rural, more traditional communities, is the stigma that it's a curse. And I think the reason we see these neglected children from those areas is because they hide them.
We just don't know what we don't know.
So they get hidden because they're seen as a curse or a shame. So for that, again, just more and more education as much as you can. There's not really much more we can do.
And more proven cases, the more that this emerges within communities, people are going to understand.
Yes, absolutely. And people who've had successful treatment, like Karen's son or this little boy, who can go back into the community and say, look, it's not a curse, it works, it's fine, you can fix it.
It's not even that major, even though the problem is major.
Yes.
The resources, everything, the mindset is there. Absolutely. And I think this is one of those beautiful moments where if we do just connect the dots, it can all work. So what are the dots that need to be connected for you right now? Funding, I would imagine. Yeah,
funding, we've developed from supporting 6 Clubfoot clinics in the State House to 47. Wow. So it's it's probably 5,000 children this year, because it was 4,700 last year, in different stages of either wearing this or having their casts. So definitely funding. What has been one of STEP's great successes was to put people that are STEP staff into the clinics. So we're covering about 55 to 60% of all patients that come through the partner clinics will see a STEPS person at some stage, whether it's handing out one of our information leaflets, counselling them, talking to them every week, bonding, as Andrew was saying, you start to really form an immense connection.
It's a network.
So funding to cover more people so that we can cover all of the clinics, you know, to have somebody in every clinic, getting the budgets right, you know, the procurement and that type of thing, so that we know the money's there. It's just to put that, you know, sign the dotted line, let's get some stock in.
Wouldn't that be awesome to see clinics and hospitals popping up as being a hotspot for this kind of treatment? That South Africa became a hotspot for this kind of treatment within Africa. The knowledge is here, the mindset, the doctors are here, and clearly the communities are here to help look after those families. This isn't a short solution, not immediate, so it does require effort and people to be attentive. But when we look at the long-term projection, how much can be saved in the long journey, unbelievable opportunity to do something special, and it's for children. With the right treatment, Clubfoot doesn't have to be a disability. It can be a temporary challenge with a lifelong solution. So if you'd like to learn more, if you would like to support STEPS or any of the organizations working within this network on their mission, you can visit steps.org.za.